Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Glad to have you with us on another Monday evening for episode 7 of Onward to Victory. My name is Noah Reed, and today we're down one, but still, as always, joined by
Jordan Talley.
We're missing Ella Wolter-Sánchez today. Hope that she's having a good time, and we'll see her again next week. But we're going to kick things off right away. There's a lot to get to. We're going to start with the good question of the day. What's your favorite Halloween combo? Give me your best candy, movie, and spooky song combination because it's spooky season.
Okay, this is a tough one because there's so many different aspects of Halloween. Okay, I'm a big holiday enjoyer. It's all out for me. And I feel like for Halloween you can go scary, horror, thriller vibes, or you can go Disney fun. So I'm going to give you a little bit one of each here. The best candy, I'm a big Reese's fan.
Okay.
Love Reese's. Kit Kats, always good. Milky Ways are always good. I should say those are my top 3. Also, the caramel apple suckers. Haven't been able to get my hands on one of those this season, but those have got to be top 10 candy of all time for me. I love them so much. Best movie, I would say, okay, hot take. The Nightmare Before Christmas is both. It's both.
I'm not a Nightmare Before Christmas fan.
What?
I'm just not a Tim Burton fan.
How are you
so
not a
I
Tim
don't
Burton
like
fan?
any of the claymation. It's always freaked me out. Also, I have, for all the listeners out there and all my friends at home, we have trauma from watching that movie in theaters, and that was not fun.
No, okay. Well, I love Nightmare Before Christmas, so you probably don't like Coraline then either.
Absolutely hate Coraline. Oh, no. Never, ever.
Oh, my gosh. I've been Coraline for Halloween 2 years in a row. I love Coraline. Okay, so for, fun little movies, Coraline, Nightmare Before Christmas, Corpse Bride's always a good one, and then Hocus Pocus. Love Hocus Pocus.
Heard Hocus Pocus. It's pretty good.
You never seen it?
No.
Okay, you got to add that to your list because I love Hocus Pocus. And then, on the other end, I don't know. I'm a big horror movie fan. I love the Scream movies. Scream 1 specifically. All the other ones are not that good. But I love Scream, and I love the Halloween series. They're kind of bad, but it's just, so 80s, Scream, slasher movie. I love it so much. And then spooky song, Psycho Killer by the Talking Heads. Love that song. And it's in Scream, I believe. Also, Red Right Hand. That one's also in Scream. So I like that one, too. Reminds me of Scream.
All good options. Now, you talk 1980s. You want to give me 1980s? Give me a bowl of my favorite candy, which is going to be Left Twix. Okay? Left Twixes are so good. I don't know. I just like the Left Twix better than the right. I'm going to restart this discussion. No reason whatsoever, just to make people angry.
Okay, cool.
But I agree.
Reese's
are top 3 for sure. And then I'd probably go, I don't know, Snickers and Milky Way kind of go back and forth. But I like the things with the caramel. So even the Mr. Good bars or the 1000 Grand, those ones are so good. Mm-hmm. But as far as movie goes, I have a tradition of watching Ghostbusters. Absolutely love Ghostbusters. The second one's okay. I like what they've done with the Afterlife, but I've always just liked to go back to that original Ghostbusters just because it kind of captures, like you said, that nostalgia.
So nostalgia.
But I've also, I'm not a horror person for all those, listening. Don't like scary movies. I'll leave that to my brother. But I like, kind of the, mystery kind of aspect of the stuff. So, Scooby-Doo. When I was growing up, watched a lot of Scooby-Doo with my family.
Okay, but how about the live-action Scooby-Doos? Those ones? Have you seen those ones?
I've seen those ones. I just prefer the cartoon better.
Yeah,
the original voice actors.
Valid.
I grew up on the 80s cartoons, Transformers, Voltron, Scooby-Doo, He-Man, all of those classic stuff that came out from about 82 to 85. I was raised on it because that's what my dad was raised on.
Valid.
And so, yeah, and a spooky song, Thriller is hard to beat by Michael Jackson, but I actually really like Superstition by Stevie Wonder. That is an underrated song. But that's enough of our Halloween just nonsense. Let's take things right away into Sun Devil hockey.
Yes. Okay. So as we know, ASU kind of had a disappointing weekend. Not last weekend, but the weekend before. But They were on the road again this past weekend with a 2-game series against the Northern Michigan Wildcats, and ASU was able to bag both games in a series sweep against the Wildcats, improving their record from 1-4-1 to 3-4-1. The sweep took form in a 3-1 victory on Friday and a 2-0 shutout win on Saturday. On Friday night, we saw 3 different Sun Devils get on the scoreboard, with Bennett Shimmick, who we have talked about in the past, opening up the scoring, followed by Ryan Kierwin and an empty netter by Benji Eckerly. Also on the score sheet was last year's points leader Lucas Sillinger, tallied up 2 assists in that game on Friday night. Sun Devil hockey opted to start both goalies this weekend, splitting the time in the crease. On Friday, Luke Pavikic saved 15 of 16 shots faced, which I feel like speaks super heavily on that Sun Devil defense there. And on Saturday, they faced an even stronger performance from the Sun Devils in a shutout win. This 2-0 victory saw senior forward Ryan Curran once again light the lamp 2 times for the 2 goals scored, one on the power play and 1 empty netter. Gibson Homer spent his time on the ice this game, starting as the starting goaltender, racking up 22 saves on 22 shots on goals for him to record the first shutout of the season. Something that I was looking into while doing this research here was a possible area of concern for the Sun Devils. The second game was way chippier than the first one, causing ASU to see the power play 6 times in one game after going 0-2 on the power play in the first 2 games. They were only able to capitalize on 1 all weekend, and the Sun Devils are 5-24 on the power play all season. So that could be something going on here, but overall, this weekend, after a disappointing loss at Providence, I would say they're looking up to be doing pretty well, especially facing against these great opponents. So, you have any thoughts on that one?
I think it's just a little interesting to see how hot and cold they've been this season. You know, we've seen kind of sparks and potential. We had that tiebreaker game against Michigan. They've got the win against the Wildcats. So they've showed glimpses. They've showed promise. I think, honestly, my favorite thing to watch out of hockey has been the goalies. Because Pavikic and Homer have both split the time very equally, and I've heard a little bit just kind of back and forth from the hockey head coach, and they're really trying to utilize that. And I think that's interesting because I feel like in a lot of programs, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know about in hockey, but I feel like if you look at soccer, for example, you want to have that one goalkeeper.
Your number one.
You want to have your number one goaltender. But in this case, ASU has not necessarily A and B. It's 1A and 1B.
Yeah. So a thing coming into the Sun Devil hockey season this season was the transfer of ASU's last goaltender, Simpenfelter, who was a brick wall in the crease last season, and his career at ASU holding so many program records alongside Joey DeCord, who's another ASU goalie who is now in the NHL and plays for the Seattle Kraken. But I think a lot of their not their issues per se, but a lot of their troubles this season is going to be finding out who that number one goaltender in the crease is. And at least for me, looking at the stats, looking at the records, Gibson Homer is the strongest contender for that. Like you said, they've been pretty evenly divided, but Homer has definitely seen the crease a little bit more this season. So, yeah, lots of stuff to look forward to. And like Ryan Kierwin, he had 3 goals last weekend. So it's just getting that footing out there, getting that groove, finding your goalie, finding the chemistry on the power play, which they've been lacking. Going only 5-24 all season so far when they were a top 10 power play unit last season. So it's just finding the chemistry, especially with absences like TJ Simpenfelter and Tim Lovell, who we lost to the transfer portal to Michigan. It's just finding that connection on the blue line, in the crease, and the Sun Devils will face their first conference matchup on November 8th and 9th after a bye week this week in the form of an undefeated Colorado College team. ASU hockey will be back in Tempe November 15th and 16th for their next home series versus Omaha. And the rest of their schedule is conference matchups. So this is a all or nothing kind of schedule for the Sun Devils, and every win, loss, or tie counts. So I guess we'll see how the season shapes up for them as we continue to go along.
Absolutely. Speaking of another season that's going to be shaping up soon, we've got a little bit of an interesting story here. I want to focus on our ASU athlete, Amaya Wiley. She's a junior at ASU, but she's from Gilbert, Arizona, so hometown, attended Perry High School. And the hometown hero has quite the story because throughout most of her life, she focused on gymnastics, basketball, and softball, which, those are, I feel like, pretty, typical sports, well known by the masses.
Yeah.
However, she interestingly became too tall for gymnastics and found herself making the transition to something that could still utilize those skills, and that was dive. And so what happened when she transferred, as a freshman in high school? Well, she went on to win the Arizona High School Championship in 21. And since then, she committed to ASU, competed in 2 Pac-12 championships, and scored a career best score of 195.75 for the 10-meter dive during the 2024 Pac-12 championship. She credits her parents for her success during the journey, and I'll share a quote from her a little bit later. But what do you think of this transition? I've never heard of anyone going from gymnastics to dive and, having success right away.
Well, I think you might not seem like it on paper, but I feel like gymnastics and dive are very similar. You have the aspects of, I used to be a cheerleader and I used to do gymnastics and stuff, so you have the aspects of those tumbling elements, flips, dives, the balance, the very elite athleticism that you have to have for all of those sports, but specifically gymnastics and diving, I feel like are almost a niche of their own. So yeah, I could totally see the gymnastics aspect being transferred into diving just through having that previous knowledge of the flips and the way your body moves and how you can achieve those aspects. And I can totally relate on growing too tall for gymnastics. That was a hard hitter for me as a child, but yeah, I can for sure totally see the correlation there.
Now, one of the things, again, that she just said her parents were huge. They always kind of pushed her through whatever sport she wanted to do, encouraging her to keep going. And so Amaya said that my parents have supported me 100%, no matter what sport I chose to do. They were there. They would take me to practices, pay for my sports, and then academics, the same thing. If I needed help, they would make sure that I'm getting the help that I needed. And I find this really, really interesting because she's obviously progressed now to the collegiate level here at ASU, and the team's actually already competed several times this season, and they're set to host their next matchup, and it's coming up quick. On November 7th, the team will welcome Stanford and Cal to the Mona Plummer Aquatic Center for the first of a 2-day meet. And as for Wiley herself, she's already found some success this season, and in the season opener versus the University of Las Vegas, Nevada, she competed in the 1-meter diving and finished 3rd place, which, again, for this being a relatively young season, she's starting it off on the right foot. Obviously, they're going to be in a new conference this year, which we'll actually touch on a little bit later on how that can affect some of our sports. But I find this really interesting because she has, from everything I found, she had the potential to be really good at basketball and softball. Obviously, with the height, that is a big advantage. Mm-hmm. But she ended up focusing on diving and, being here in Arizona still at ASU, which is, considered her home school, is something that she says has been a dream of hers, and she's gotten to just love every single moment of it. I don't know if you have any more takeaways from that.
It's just, I think it's cool to see somebody who doesn't necessarily have a ton of obviously she was great in high school, but someone whose main focus throughout her high school career was other sports. It's cool to see her go on and be able to do a sport that maybe she hasn't been doing for as long at a collegiate level. I just think that's so awesome, especially someone, I started cheerleading kind of late in the game, but awesome to see success in a homegrown talent.
Absolutely. Speaking of success, that's what the ASU volleyball season has been all about. They got a pair of road games coming up in Utah and awaiting the Sun Devil volleyball team this week. First up, they're going to take on the BYU Cougars on Thursday evening, Halloween night, and then tackling Utah on Saturday. ASU's climbed to number 13 in the coaches poll. This is despite them getting left off the D1 committee rankings. I know that's actually caused quite a bit of a ruckus here within just the general sports niche at ASU, but the Sun Devils are 20-20 this season, an astounding record, riding an 8-game win streak, which dates back to October 2nd. A win on Thursday would secure an undefeated month for head coach J.J. Van Niel and his Sun Devil team as they get ready for their final push for the season. Just a little bit of a preview for that Thursday game. ASU's led by Jelly Sear, 270 kills in 72 sets played. And I know that's just one player, but it's been a force of players all working together. They've meshed really well in either whether it's in Mullet Arena, whether they're in DFA. But let's take a little peek at BYU. They began the season strong, ranked as the 20th best program, but they've kind of stumbled as of late. They're 13-16 overall, which is quite a respectable record, 3-6 against their conference opponent. That also does include a loss to ASU in Tempe. The team is led by Claire Little. She's actually got 283 kills, so a little bit up above Sear. We'll see how that matchup goes back and forth. A good head-to-head to see some of the top offensive players in volleyball, but that's averaging roughly 4 per set, which is, pretty stout when you can rack up those numbers in college, not to mention in the Big 12, which has, again, time and time again this year been touted as the toughest conference or one of the toughest conferences in all of college sports. What are your thoughts?
So we've talked about volleyball almost the whole time we've had this show. They've been mentioned almost every single week just because of how strong their performance is. I was never into volleyball before I came here to ASU. So coming in and seeing this astounding, well-rounded ASU volleyball program, it is so much fun to see. And they're just such a well-rounded team, at least in my opinion, I think. Jelly Sear, right? She has been recognized by the Big 12 Conference herself for being one of the best players weekly, at almost every single week. And I'm just 20-2. Very, very, very promising record, if you ask me. I mean, BYU came in, 20th best? And now they're 13-6. And so ASU sitting at 20-2. Very impressive to me. I'm just, so excited to see out. I'm very excited and hopeful for their season and how it shapes out just going into the postseason.
And again, those 2 losses you mentioned have been against some of the arguably top 10 to top 5 best programs in the nation.
Arguably the number 1.
Yeah, and Nebraska. So we're trying to figure out, I feel like, and I say we, and I'm referencing ASU as a whole, they're trying to figure out where they stand amidst not just the Big 12 Conference, but also just as a whole in the NCAA. And I think it's going to be a very, very curious playoffs to watch because you're going to have some serious heavy hitters go home.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously we don't know what that's going to entail for ASU, but call me not delusional, but I am very, very optimistic for the ending of their season. And just, also, so much of the fan atmosphere. I mean, we've both been able to get chances to go down. I was in DFA for when they were there. But just the student body is so excited about volleyball. The atmosphere, everything from the culture in the arena, the atmosphere with the players, Sparky coming up, causing a ruckus in the student section. It's just so much fun to watch and experience as a student.
Hey, speaking of students, we've got another high school prospect for you, and I heard you were telling me earlier before we started, going live today that this guy is gonna just take the cake. I'm very excited to hear about this athlete. So take it away.
Okay, so today we have a football prospect, Desmond Roebuck, a 5'10" wide receiver from Tucson, Arizona. He is a senior this year. And I mean, he's constantly putting up amazing stats. He was ranked as the 8th best high school recruit according to Max Preps. He's a 3-star recruit, which in my opinion I think is a little bit low, but we won't get into that. He's just overall a multifaceted athlete out of Marina High School. As a junior, he played in all 12 games for the season, and get this, he racked up 121 receptions with 1,332 yards and 8 touchdowns. I mean, if you see those numbers on paper, that's kind of he was a junior in high school, second year full time on varsity. Like, that is impressive numbers. And this year, as a senior and just only 8 games played so far, he has 62 receptions for 825 yards and 11 touchdowns. That's more touchdowns than he did all last season. I was talking to my friend who's from Tucson, and she brought him up in conversation, whatever, and I looked up, and I'm like, this guy is really good. Like, she's not a big sports fan, but I was looking at his stats, and I was like, just on paper, you can see what a great wide receiver he is. Since his sophomore season, he has averaged over 100 yards per game every season, and he's already sitting at that over 100-yard mark this season when it's not even complete. And in 39 games played in his career, he has tallied 319 receptions and 3,933 yards.
Wow.
I see you shaking your head over there.
Well, I mean, 39 times 100 is 3,000. So he's, like you said, he's averaging 100 yards per game. That's numbers that you don't see out of high school. I mean, let alone college or the NFL. This is intense. And you said what? Only a 3-star recruit? How's that even possible?
Stars. That's what I was saying. He's only, I think, I mean, he's doing great, and I fear that he's a little bit underrated.
Well, I mean, I feel like this is what this segment is supposed to be on the show. We're shedding light. I hope that, I don't know if someone out there is listening to us talking about right now, but if you do not have Roebuck as one of your top, prospects on your radar, I mean, I know you're going to get into this later, some of the schools that have, offered him spots, but my goodness, a 3-star recruit when you're given over almost 4,000 yards that's incredible. And that's, wow.
And get this, I'm just going to blow your mind here once again. As of September 14th of this year, which is the very beginning of the high school football season, he now holds the title of the all-time career receptions in all of Arizona high school football. And it's only gone up since then. He has, I think it was like 283 receptions, and now he has 319. And that it's in the span of what, a month and a half?
And the season's still young.
And the season is still young. And they are still, I was blown away. I was like, this kid is just sitting down there in Tucson as a 3-star recruit. Like, I was looking at some of the other kids in the top, and I was very impressed with him for sneaking in at that 3 stars. Marina High School is currently undefeated, sitting at 9-0.
Shocker. So
big shocker when you have a receiver putting up 300 a game. That'd be crazy. 120 so yards a game at least this season. He has received offers from University of Arizona, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, ASU, Portland State, and UW, my hometown team. As of right now, he is committed to University of Washington. So the Huskies are about to receive a steal, in my opinion. I think they're getting the bang for their buck. More than the bang for their buck, if you ask me. I'm super excited to see where this goes for the rest of the season, especially since they're undefeated. Maybe they'll see a big playoff run. But yeah, any thoughts from you?
No closing thoughts on that. Just, man, you were not kidding about this receiver. He just, wow, he blows away the rest of the competition. I think that's got to be one of the top prospects we've got to highlight this season. Now, we're going to shift gears a little bit and switch over to wrestling because we are less than a week away from the first wrestling match of the season. I feel like the sports have just kicked into high gear.
Yes,
we talked about triathlon last week, mentioned dive earlier today, golf, volleyball, football, you name it, it's happening. So let's give you a preview of what you can expect from the Sun Devils this season. Defending national champion Richard Figueroa returns, seeking to become just the 4th in team history to win a second NCAA title. And man, Colton Schultz, he's aiming for a program best 5th All-American honor. Can't even imagine being an All-American once, but 5 times. That's impressive. And as just the past half decade, ASU has emerged as one of the top programs in the nation. The Maroon and Gold squad has finished within the top 7 in each of the last 4 seasons, and that was at the national level. If you dial in just to the conference level, obviously Pac-12 no longer with us anymore.
Rest in peace.
But ASU won 7 of the past 10 conference titles. And then, again, like we said, they've yet to meet the Big 12, so we'll see what the team brings to its first conference match, which is going to be a little bit later on this season. Their first matchup is going to be November 1st, this Friday. I can't believe we're about to roll into November. But they've got a ton of momentum going into the season with 5 of their NCAA qualifiers returning to the map for the 24-25 season. What are your just focal points for the wrestling season as we get ready to approach it?
I mean, I probably know close to nothing about wrestling, if I'm going to be honest. But just looking at that, I mean, you got a solid contender in this ASU program. And I think that's a big discussion in all of ours is how much ASU's kind of a quote-unquote like sleeper school when it comes to sports. They're very good at swim, wrestling, diving, but nobody talks about those as much as we get for football or whatever when we're having a bad season. So I'm very excited. I feel like this will be a very great season for them, especially in the new conference, how that'll face out for them. But, I mean, 7 of the past 10 conference titles, I feel like that can just speak for itself.
Yeah, and again, Figueroa is the reigning national champion. He was actually just named one of the 10 Division I wrestlers to be a preseason frontrunner for the 2025 Dan Hodge Trophy, and that's presented by Win Magazine. I know it's a long road ahead before another NCAA champion is crowned in Pennsylvania this year. They're going to be at the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia on March 22nd. So we got a little bit of while to wait before, things get down to crunch time. But obviously we're in the thick of things for the season. Football's heading to the end of the year. Volleyball, soccer's entering its Pac-12 conference play, Big 12 conference play. Got my brain's a little scrambled there, but we're just about out of time. Do you have any closing thoughts for the show?
No, just winter sports are so back in full swing, so there's going to be a lot to discuss.
Yeah, and have a safe and happy Halloween. We'll send you off with a little bit of some spooky songs.